Hi, everyone. Thanks for signing on and joining us tonight. I'm just going to give everyone a couple of minutes to join and we will get started. The webinar is being recorded if you didn't hear that already, and I'll make the recording available as per usual by the end of the week, hopefully. Just got some more people joining as I'm talking. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Nicole. So nice to see you here. If you've noticed, I've made a change to the webinar title just today. We're really about trying to make this really practical information that you can take away tonight and do something with. I always thought I was being too nice, and maybe I have been. So this is my way of really helping you have great CVs. And if you feel like you're not getting anywhere, I guarantee you there's going to be something in tonight's webinar that you're going to be able to take away and put into practice tomorrow or tonight if you feel like it. So what I'm going to do is just give people a couple of more minutes. Whilst I'm doing that, there is a chat function on the webinars. The way I've got it set up, you can't actually talk on tonight's webinar, but you can go into the chat function or to put something in the Q&A. It's just me running it. So if you do put something in the chat, give me a few minutes to see it as I'm running through the webinar, but please feel free at any time you've got a question. If you've already got one, drop it in there. If there's something in particular you'd love for me to cover tonight, I'm very good at thinking on my feet when it comes to CVs and LinkedIn and things like that. So please feel free to drop anything that you like into the chat. And of course, if my internet drops out or anything like that, you suddenly can't hear me, please let me know so that I can fix that straight away. It's a bit windy where I am here tonight. And so, yeah, it does impact it a little bit. Oh, thank you. Someone's just said, been enjoying my no nonsense post. I'm really trying to change things. I am big on people showing up authentically now on LinkedIn, and I'm trying my best to do that. So look out. We'll see what comes of that. So I'm going to kick it off. It is, as I said, the workshop is being recorded tonight and it should be available. I usually email it out to people by the end of the week, and then it goes up onto my YouTube channel as well, which is still growing. So without further ado, let me kick it off. Welcome everyone to our CV workshop, which has been rebranded into Why Your CV Sucks, and most importantly, how to fix it. So there's a couple of key things that we're going to cover off tonight, and that is the 4 biggest things that I think you can take away from when you're approaching a job search, whether you're already in a role and you're just thinking of something new, whether you're out of work and not getting anywhere with your applications. This is definitely for you. So we're going to talk about writing a professional summary. So what sits atop your CV. We're going to look at how you qualify your achievements. Again, if you follow my Thursday Great Question videos on LinkedIn, I talk about numbers all the time, and I'm going to get a t-shirt printed that says know your numbers, because it's so important when you want to stand out in your job application and even in the rest of your career. We're going to talk about an applicant tracking systems. Of course, it wouldn't be a CV workshop without talking about ATSs, the controversy. I'm going to demystify all of those myths, debunk those myths that are out there around ATSs. And we're going to talk about LinkedIn and posting content. As you know, I do post on LinkedIn a lot, and I know that there are ways in which you can also be doing that to help with your job search, to help with your career, lots of different things that you can be putting in there. So now I'll get to some of the questions at the end and make sure that I cover off all of those as well. So let's get through this. So in terms of me and who I am and why I'm qualified to be running this webinar, it is my passion project, not just what I do for work. I've been a recruiter here in Sydney for about 10 years. Previous to that, I was a real estate agent in Singapore, actually, and I came back to Australia and didn't really know what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. And I met 2 amazing managing directors, and they were in a recruitment business called Morgan McKinley, and I was sold the minute I met them that I wanted to do recruitment. And I've been doing that ever since. I launched my recruitment agency, Digital Talent Lab, a year ago. So we have just kicked off year 2. I do focus mainly on digital and marketing with Digital Talent Lab. And I also launched Career Architect earlier this year because I love helping people, somewhat of a coach, but for me it's more around helping you find out what it is you want to be when you grow up. And I think that you can have different iterations of that. I did join the 50 Club this year in July, and I'm also really passionate about people finding great second half careers. So turning it around, I know at 50, for anyone else that's in that same boat, sometimes it can be a real eye-opener as to what the heck am I going to do with the rest of my life? And I don't believe that your age should stop you from achieving what you want to do. In terms of when it comes to CVs, why am I so passionate about this? I read so many CVs, as you can imagine, each and every week. And I've seen everything from what works, what doesn't, and what resonates with hiring managers. When you do work with me as a candidate, we're not letting a bad CV go out the door. So you rest assured that we will help you fix that. But of course, the ones that come into me that I'm seeing, they're just missing some critical information and some key information that I know that hiring managers want to see. So what hiring managers consistently come back to us is everything that we're going to cover in tonight's CV workshop. So in terms of where we're going to start, let's talk about the professional summary. And you can call this what you like, the overview, a couple of paragraphs. I don't actually think you need to call it anything at the top of your CV. At the end of tonight's webinar, I'm actually going to show you a CV format that I really like. And in previous CV workshops, I talk a lot about format, but I honestly don't think it matters what format your CV is on. I think for me as a recruiter, I made a joke about this earlier on this week and said, if I, was in the loo at a nightclub and saw a digital marketing manager's information and what they did and amazing numbers and their phone number, I'd be calling them. So you could write it on a piece of paper and send it to me in the post, for all I care. It's about the numbers that are on there. It's about the information that's cutting through. And so that professional summary that sits at the top of your CV has to be different, and it has to be standing out because it's the first thing that people read. And if you want them to keep reading, it's great to have some amazing information in there. And I was actually having a conversation with someone today, and I said, what if you wrote something that was completely different in that professional summary? And for her, we actually came up with, what if you asked a question in that first statement that's on your CV? You could pose a question to essentially the hiring manager. I wouldn't be putting it towards the recruiter, but the hiring manager. You're asking them what that pain point was and how you solve it for them. I would keep reading a CV that had that. And my guesstimate with that 90%, I think is pretty accurate, actually. If I read 10 CVs, there's usually only one that has an amazing profile at the top of their CV. The rest, of course, I keep reading because I really want to find great people, but not every hiring manager is going to do that. So really think about that professional summary, what it looks like and what it contains. For me, there are 3 easy ways in which you can structure that professional summary. I do like it to be a couple of paragraphs long, and I'll explain that in a second. But in terms of what needs to go in there, you should answer these questions: what you do, how you do it, and how you measure it. It should always 100% be in the first person. So you're either starting with an I am statement, like I am a digital marketing recruiter who has placed over 600 people in the last 2 years. I'm making that number up. And that then suddenly makes it not just a piece of paper, it's a person that's in front of you. And as I said, ask a question. So instead of saying that I'm a digital marketing recruiter, or in this case, I'm a seasoned marketer with decades of experience, you could try posing a question: does your business need a marketer that's going to bring more qualified leads? And then the next sentence could be, in the last 12 months, I have delivered a 72% increase in qualified leads for XYZ business. And that leads me to the third point there, the social proof that's in that. Naming the businesses, no matter how big or how small, they don't have to all be a Qantas, a Blackmores and a Westpac for it to be legitimizing that experience that you have. It just solidifies it for people when they can read where you did that. With the professional summary, I think that's where you can really be tailoring the information for either roles that you're applying for or companies/industry that you're applying for as well. Think about those metrics. And when I mentioned around the paragraphs, why I think it should be a couple of paragraphs long, is that first paragraph could be that I am statement or the question that you're asking and answering, and talking about more about why you, what is it that makes you that great leader, that amazing marketer, that incredible change manager, and then that social proof in the second paragraph. So it doesn't have to be overly long, but I think it's nice to sort of really solidify all of the information in there. So as I mentioned at the beginning, numbers are my thing, and they 100% belong in that professional summary. I would even bold them. You have to be putting numbers in there, calling out your biggest achievements. And again, that's what I would be tailoring for each application or each CV that you're putting out there into the world. I would be making those numbers really stand out and making the difference between every other person that's just saying that they're a seasoned professional in XYZ and you, who's got real numbers and real results. And I'll talk a little bit later on speaking the language of leaders, but that's exactly what you're doing when you're putting numbers in your CV. So they definitely belong in that professional summary at the top, and they definitely belong in the bigger part of your CV. So to put that together nicely for that professional summary, start with the question or start with a statement that gets people seeing you as a solution. Numbers, they make sure the experience sticks in the mind of the reader, and they also help to break up big blocks of text. So I'm a really visual learner, and so I get a bit taken aback when I see loads and loads and loads of text. So the numbers help break up even that opening couple of paragraphs that you have on your CV. When it comes to goals, I say there, throw your goals out. And I do see a lot of CVs that say, I'm looking for a position in a progressive business that allows me to work flexibly and continue my career. I think that is wasting space on your CV. Of course, you want to go to a business that has all those things that you want, that's on your wish list. But the purpose of your CV is not for that. It is to showcase what it is that you do. So take that out. It's just wasting space. And as I said, speaking the language of leaders, which is all about revenue, it's all about money, it's all about results, it's all about mitigating risk. And I'll talk about that a little bit later on. But they're the top things that I would consider when it comes to your professional summary at the top. So how do you unsuck your numbers? That is a S-U-C-K, by the way, S for Sam. In terms of the numbers and where I go with this, I spend a lot of time coaching people. This is probably the biggest thing that I help people with. And it actually started a couple of years ago. If you've been on one of my CV webinars before, you may remember this story. But my son, Connor, who's now 22, I think, 23, and he was working at Harris Farm as a afternoon job after school, right? And he had figured out this way. He was stuck in the back of the store, and his job of a night was to collect the garbage. And they had this special machine that collected all the garbage, collated it into recycling and what have you. And it was just taking well over an hour at the end of closing for them to collect all this garbage and to essentially close the store down. So the store was having 15 people staying way longer than what they should have done. So he proposed this new way of which they could be getting the garbage collected throughout the store, throughout the evening, collecting it in a different way. And it suddenly meant that that hour that everyone was getting paid overtime was only half an hour, and he's sometimes about 25, 15 minutes. So although he wasn't as popular with everyone else working in the store, the managers absolutely loved him for it. And I think if you can even just look at the smallest things, no one else does what you do or has done what you do. And one of the biggest challenges that people have when they're in interview or they're talking about what they do for a job is that they don't show off what they can really do. So the numbers and getting it right can mean it's so game changing when it comes to your application. I actually worked with my little friend ChatGPT today and said, give me some examples of what people could look at with numbers. I love ChatGPT. If you're not on it, maybe I could even do a whole webinar on that. But numbers can be all of these things that I've got there on the screen. It could, of course, be sales and revenue is the easiest one. If you can directly attribute towards the revenue on the bottom line of a business with sales, like that's easy. But it could also be like that example I gave with Connor, cost savings and efficiency. It could be project management where you're the keeper of the keys of large projects and transformation programs. It could be marketing and social media. I know a lot of people that I work with are in the digital marketing space. So again, it's looking at leads, it's looking at attention rates, it's looking at return on investment with digital advertising. Customer retention, I think, is absolutely huge. Businesses are doing a lot and wanting to see people that not only bring on new customers, but how are you keeping the current ones? That's the easiest thing to do, surely, or the cheapest thing to do is to keep your current customers. HR and recruitment, again, somewhat easier to do. If you talk about, if you're in HR, what's the rate of you being able to maintain employees and keeping employees and seeing them continue to grow their career throughout the business and not walk out the door. Obviously, financial performance, if you're got responsibility across a P&L, there's lots in there that you can be doing and you can be looking at. You don't necessarily have to have these key things as your job, but if it forms part of it, these are lots of different ways in which you can look at, hey, where are my numbers coming from? In terms of how to include it in your CV, there's the obvious. So if we think about the format and the layout of your CV, personally, I like your experience section to be split into responsibilities and achievements. It just makes it easy to read. It makes it easy for people to go, oh, okay, they did this and that resulted in that. Simple. You want to make it really easy for people to understand what you did and what you achieved. So then I like to say that the responsibilities, pick the biggest thing that you did and the most influential thing that you did goes first. And you talk about the key things that you did on a day-to-day, and then the corresponding amount of results in terms of your achievements that were related to those big ticket items in your day-to-day. Go bold, and I mean that you actually bold out the numbers within your CV, because it makes me go straight to it. I get straight into that good stuff and I look for it. Where I get a pen out, even though everything's digital, I still hold the pen in my hand and I'm zooming across my screen going, okay, where are the numbers? Where are the numbers? Where are the numbers? And if I don't see them straight away, I may give it a glance over again. But honestly, I want to be able to see that information really quickly, because for me as a recruiter, I'm then going to get on the phone to hiring managers and say, Mrs. Hiring Manager, you've got to see this digital marketer. These are the results they've had, because that's what they want. And then if it's a hiring manager that's reading your CV first, you want them to also be ready to pick up the phone and you want them to be interviewing you tomorrow. So if it's hard for them to see what you've done, they're not likely to interview you in that first round. You've got about 6 seconds. I know that sounds harsh, but it is literally about 6 seconds to make a really good first impression. I'm not saying that people don't spend more time reading your CV. They do, but you want them to be interested enough. And mix it up in terms of the the results that you are quantifying, look at different metrics and look at different ways in which you can talk about those results, whether it's on your CV, whether it's on LinkedIn, whether it's in interview. You don't just want to be regurgitating the exact same results each and every time on each different platform. So also think about the numbers that you directly impacted. So a good example of that is in that project space. If you have, say, responsibility for a project budget of $6 million, that's a good number to include. But I'd also like to see, what did you do with that? What happened to the project? How responsible were you with that project budget that you had? In terms of the numbers game and what to consider easy, where you've saved money or where you've made money, both are equally important. As I said, having the variety of different numbers throughout your CV, throughout your LinkedIn that you talk about in interview, and they also might be things that you cherry pick out from your background depending on the role that you're talking about. What's the return on investment with you and your salary? Numbers can just help that be, so attractive to a future employer. If they can see how are they making their money back on you. I know it sounds harsh, but it's really true. For recruiters, we would have to sit there and justify the salary that we're getting to about 3 or 4 times in terms of revenue before we're even getting an interview, and that's at the low side. So if you ask any recruiter, they'll be able to tell you bang, bang, bang what their numbers are. And again, speaking that language of leaders, so thinking revenue, thinking money, thinking risk, that's what hiring managers want to hear when you're talking about your numbers. As I said at the beginning, it's not a CV workshop without talking about an ATS, or an applicant tracking system. I'm not sure whether or not we should be saying ATSs in plural, but you all know what I mean. And it's not this guy over here who is making the decision to hire you or not, or to decide whether or not you're going to get through to the next round. Again, I've spoken a fair bit about this on LinkedIn, and there's going to be so many different opinions around this. And I am happy to be proved wrong, but I don't believe that it is AI that you're seeing it's not generative AI that you're seeing in the recruitment process, it's automation. And so I don't believe that ATSs suck. I believe that they are actually somewhat beneficial, because I'll tell you how it works and what happens behind the scenes. And you may already know this, but let's say you apply for a role via a job board like LinkedIn or like Seek. It comes in. I run an ATS here at Digital Talent Lab, and it will come in automatically into that ATS. And for me, and what I do, I read each and every CV. I don't use any real automation in that first instance when your CV comes in. I'm reading it, I go through it, I think, who do I want to call? Who could I use for this role? Who could be quite interesting for something else? Who's got amazing experience that I just want to hear more about because I know I can place them somewhere? So there's no automation happening in my business, and there's certainly no AI making the decision as to whether or not, yes, you're good, or no, you're not. In terms of other businesses that may have high volume application, or who rely heavily on their ATS, if they've got a variety of roles that they're looking after, and this may happen with internal teams, it may happen with an office manager that's running recruitment, it may happen with some other recruitment agencies, all that their ATS is doing is the CVs go into it, and then they might use automation to help find the best candidates that have applied, those people who are meeting the requirements the most, almost as a percentage, right? So they will put in keywords, they'd put in notes from their briefing with the hiring manager, they'll put in a few extra commands for the ATS to go through those CVs and virtually say, find me people who have got digital, who have got marketing, who have got any keyword that's in there, who've got change management, they've got anything that's in there that you're looking for with that job. It's keyword searching that most ATSs are being used for. And then, of course, they are being used to help see where you are in the process. So you move candidates through the process, whether they've had an internal interview, whether they've gone to first, second, third interview, are they at offer stage, have they been placed? So that's really what it is. It is not, as I said, this guy or this robot making the decision. It is just that, an applicant tracking system. It is very often used by big businesses who do volume hiring, who have lots of different roles. Like you can imagine that somewhere like CBA or Westpac, who have such a wide variety of roles, that they would use very extensive applicant tracking systems. In terms of what doesn't work, there's all this topic around beating an ATS. It's not about that. It is just about making sure that your information is being transposed correctly and therefore going into the ATS correctly. So in mine, it doesn't really matter if it's a Word or a PDF, although the only times I've had issues have been with Word CVs, and they don't really know what to do with heavy graphics. So say if you've made a logo out of your initials, or if you've got lots of charts. I've had one CV in the last 2 years that I've seen that had lots of charts, pie charts and that sort of thing on it around what a person did, and it didn't know what to do with that. And so it just really, it sort of sends the CV to look really messy and not very appealing to read. As I said, I'm happy to be proven wrong, but I don't know where there is an ATS out there that is using generative AI with machine learning that is making decisions whether or not someone will get through. I do believe even if you apply via LinkedIn and you're getting an automated response, say, well, actually, they're not even automated from what I can see. If you're getting a response, that is still someone at the end of that deciding to send you that response, not technology. No matter what, whether it's an ATS or a human reading it first, it's the content and the keywords that's important when you navigate any system. So people will be looking for particular keywords. It's still important to address the questions that are being asked. If you're applying for a role and you can see an advert out there, what are the questions that are being asked in that? You'll see that in some of my previous CV workshops where we look at how are you identifying what's being asked. But that is still really relevant in with anything that you're applying for. And at the end of the day, it is still a human that is making the decision to hire you. And good people are still getting hired, are still getting through. And I do believe that it is a human that is making the decision. I know that a lot of people, I did a poll today and 25% of those people thought that an ATS was their biggest hurdle in finding a new job. And I'm really determined to get to the bottom of that. So I don't know if it's a combination of things and then the ATS is just really the first thing that people think of. But I promise you, we'll try and make an improvement in the technology that seems to be affecting so many people's job search. So it is a system. It's not about beating it, but it's understanding how it's used. It's all about showing what you do and how you do it, whether it's an ATS or a human that's first reading your CV. Skip the graphics, get rid of them. A nice clean CV with, it likes things in the right spot. So it picks up that that's your email. It picks up that that's your phone number. And so if that's not where you would typically find on a CV, they're very clever. But if it's sort of not in line with, if it doesn't look like a phone number, if it doesn't look like an email, it doesn't, ATSs don't love that. Often what that means is when you're applying for a role and it asks you to upload your CV and then you have to go and reload all of that information. We've all been there and it sucks. That's maybe because it's not, your CV is not as readable as what it should be. But hopefully that will get better and better as these systems become more and more sophisticated. So we've got a few minutes and I'm going to talk about one of my favorite subjects, and that's LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. I use it every day, and you do get out of it what you put in. And unfortunately, a lot of the profiles I see suck as well. And the reason why that is important to know is that for someone like myself and the type of recruitment that I do, and I know a lot of people that have signed up for tonight's webinar probably know me. We're either connected on LinkedIn, we've spoken before, you know someone that knows me. So I'm presuming that most of you are in the spaces that I recruit for. I don't advertise my roles anymore. That's how disenfranchised I've become with with job boards that I don't advertise anything. And so I use LinkedIn to connect with people, to headhunt, to go out to my first and second degree network, to ask for referrals. And so LinkedIn profiles are like CVs to me. And so that's why it's important that you show it some love and that you can be found for things without necessarily applying for jobs. So I do think job boards suck, but I think a lot of people that are in the trenches finding things and just not getting traction probably agree with me. So I think the best thing that you can do is to be found on LinkedIn. So it should, when it comes to the content that's on LinkedIn, please feel free to go and jump on my profile, or there's a couple of other people that are really good to follow with this sort of thing. And you can get an idea of what good looks like on a LinkedIn profile. I like it to complement rather than replicate your CV. So making the most of the additional real estate you have with LinkedIn, that your CV is not just regurgitated on there. You're making the most of everything on there, from the headline, which is the part that goes underneath your name, to the about section, to the experience section, and making it for what you want to be found for. You can get so creative on LinkedIn. There's no rules around it unless you're going to LinkedIn jail, but I'm sure none of you are going to end up there. Just make the most of the space that you have, because I will be searching on there all day and every day. If you want me to find you for what it is that you do, LinkedIn's going to be really important for that. And I do like people to, as I said, you do get out of LinkedIn what you put into it. So I think when you can create and curate some content that you can be sharing, for people for most people in their everyday lives, they're on LinkedIn nowhere near as much as I am. And so I get it. Maybe just twice a week, one piece of content that you come up with, and you can use ChatGPT or in Copilot or whatever you like to use for some inspiration, but make it you and make it yourself, that you are sharing some information about what it is that you do. I don't necessarily think it makes sense to share about your job search or problems that you've had with finding a new job. I think you should always be putting out content that is relevant to what you do as for a living, or what you're passionate about, or a mix of the two. And then I would also just curate an article, share something that you really enjoyed reading that is, again, relevant to you, what you do for work, or your profession or your industry. And it could be from a leader that you also really admire. And again, I look towards people that don't necessarily have these massive followings on LinkedIn, but are just putting out some really great content. And extra bonus points for comments. There is an algorithm that works on LinkedIn, but honestly, I think for most people that aren't really using it as a business development tool like I am, you're not really putting out content for likes and shares and views and anything like that. It's just getting your name in front of more people than you would if you were just applying for roles on job boards. So the things to consider with your LinkedIn and giving it some love is making the most of that real estate. As I said, having different content on both your CV and on your LinkedIn. Share content a couple of times a week. That's either your content that you're putting out there as a post, or you're sharing someone else's content that you think is really great. And usually add your thoughts to the top of that as well, keeping it really relevant to what it is that you do, and even what the people that are going to make the decision to hire you do. So it's information that might be nice to them. And the same thing with people that you've connected with. If you connect with a potential hiring manager, what if you saw something and you shared that with them, and nothing, you're not asking for anything in return other than, hey, Nicole, I saw this and thought you might like it. And that's what I mean about engaging with those decision makers. Talk to them, connect with them, comment on their posts, share them information that you found that you thought would be interesting, follow their company, lots of different things that you can be doing to show up and be present on LinkedIn. So I shared this CV template in the last webinar, and I still can't get it to be any bigger than what it is. And so I have to share it in 2 pages. So normally this would be, in that portrait, obviously looking like an A4 normal CV. So just ignore the white space on the side. Pete Maverick, if you are anywhere near my age, you'll know who Pete Maverick is. He's everyone's favorite aviator from Top Gun. And he's also, wouldn't you know it, a digital marketing manager. But this just gives you an idea of what I think a really clean looking CV is. I can share this sample with you, or if you send me a note on LinkedIn, I can share it with you there as well. But basically, he talks 2 paragraphs up the top about what he does, and then some results in those activities that he's done. The skills that you can put down the side here, so this is a column-based CV, or what I call a column-based CV. It's straight out of Canva. Those skills that you mentioned sort of there, this is obviously for those that know digital marketing, and you'd make that really relevant for your industry. That is what I might put into a search. I've kept it very high level there, but say I was searching my database, or, you know, and hiring manager came to me and said, hey, I want a digital marketer who's got email marketing, done some content, done some web analytics. I've then put in all of those skills, and that's where you'd want those keywords that someone's going to be searching for. And I've split their education and certification there. You don't have to put the dates on if you don't want to. That's completely up to you. And then it's just talking about responsibilities and their achievements. And then the second page of it there, that just continues on. Same format. They've got the month and the year there, split into responsibilities and achievements for each and every role. You can, if you like, talk about the business a little bit more. You could have 1 or 2 lines just between, you know, where you've put the name of the business. You could talk a little bit about what that was if you wanted to, so that people could see if there was any relevance between the roles that you were applying for and the roles where you've been working. And then again, this is the second page. So I would then have bullet points that were labeled expertise. And again, they could just be really relevant keywords that would help you be found if someone was looking up their database, for example. And then I like a little about me. It just so happens that Pete Maverick has a side hustle where he's been doing some digital market consultancy, and he's made $300,000 in the last 12 months in revenue. But anything that you're adding in there, you know, he talks about a recent campaign where he added 25% in revenue, talked a little bit about his side hustle and how much money he's made. So if you're going to put extra information, make it really strategic and really relevant to what it is that you do. I'll talk in a second about what we do, what I do, and how we can work together. But let me go back to the questions, and I'm just going to go through these one by one. So bear with me as I read and then answer as best we can. I won't say people's names, but I'll read out the questions if you can't see them. So someone had a question: what's the best way to navigate in a resume if you're multi-skilled, currently have 4 key types of resumes, your heart lies in the middle of all 4, you've been designer, art director, creative director, and digital producer, career is being built on being ambidextrous, I love that word, but creative at core. After 10 years, jobs seem very, very specific. Yes, that is true. With the lights and technology recruitment of 5 years. That's a hard question to ask. So I might come back to you separately on that. But if you want to be able to navigate in your resume, if you've got lots of different things that you do, and that can be difficult. I do think when it comes to, if you are looking for something, that you do have to go niche a little bit. I call it going niche for a week. I do think you have to figure out what it is that you really want to do. It's hard to ask someone else to make that decision for you. And that's essentially what you're trying to do. If you've got a CV that is encompassing lots of different things, you're essentially asking the reader to make that decision about what you do. And that's hard. So and roles are very specific to a certain extent. We are actually seeing some roles are being really broad. So they're expecting absolutely everything from everyone at the moment. So I would pick that one thing or that couple of things that you do well and that you love. If you want to, you can book into a 15-minute chat with me or a phone call with me at any point, and we can go through trying to nut that out for you if you like. 40 feels 50 sometimes in the working scenario. I 100% agree with that. And there was actually something that came up. So someone said that 40 feels like 50. I think that we are seeing age discrimination for people in their 40s, which I think is awful. And I saw a post from someone that I know today that was talking about buying businesses from people that were getting close to retirement. So he was actually targeting recruitment business owners who no longer wanted to be business owners and wanting to sell their business. And he said he's seeing lots of baby boomers who are wanting to retire. And then he also said that those people were in their 50s. Now, I'm in my 50s, the very beginning of it. Now, my parents are baby boomers, and I was really offended when he said that. I was like, what happened to Gen X? We've somehow get left behind. Great, you do responsibilities and achievements. Does it tell you much about the culture of the company if you have to upload your details and then fill in their ATS sections and the application process is a bit of a mess? I would think that for that, so when you are, someone has just asked, when you upload your information into an ATS and it transposes the information incorrectly, is that being disrespectful to the candidate? And I know what you mean. It could be that they just haven't been through the process themselves. It could be, it's probably good feedback for them. So if you are finding that when you upload your CV and it's meant to transpose all the information and it's not, I would let them know that maybe after you've gone through the process. But it could be, yeah, they just haven't been, the user experience hasn't been tested at all. I think it is a little bit too much to ask that that process be super smooth when it comes to technology. It could also be, I don't think it's your CV, because I do get a lot of people saying this to me, but it could just be that, you know, if they're seeing 10 different CV types, that maybe it just is having it's spitting them out. I don't necessarily think that that means we should all have CVs that are the same, though. So, yeah, that's a bit of a hard one to answer. Do you add open to work? There was some debates around this week, that green banner that sits there on LinkedIn, and someone saying that they shouldn't have it. I think that's ridiculous. You know, if anyone is criticizing for you to have that open to work banner, they're nuts. I actually use it to search for people, because it also means you're available right away. You're definitely interested. I'm not wasting your time if I come to you and say, hey, are you open to work at the moment? Because I know it. So I don't have an issue with it. And if a hiring manager thinks you look desperate, I probably wouldn't work for them. I think that is so silly how people do that. I think if you're starting to feel the impact of it, you can always take it off and then put it back on again. But if it's been 6 months or it's been 12 months, it looks like you forgot to take it off. There are some scenarios where I can imagine you might want to remove it. But honestly, if it's because people are going to discriminate and say you look desperate, I think that's nuts. Yeah, strange. Make sure you have two-factor authentication for LinkedIn. I know people have got hacked, sadly, and lost their profiles. Yeah, that would be difficult. Thank you very much for the compliments. How do you navigate finding a new role when one is at the end of their 50s? I would think when it comes to age-related discrimination, that I would be, although it kind of goes against the grain of it, but I would probably take off any information that people could stick an age or number on me. So I probably would remove the dates around my education. I probably would have no more than 10 years, or I say probably, I wouldn't have more than 10 years experience on my CV. So I wouldn't have anything that, I think most people have a natural gap in their CV at the 10-year mark. So what is that? I was going to say it's 2004, but it's not. Of course, that's 2014. So anything before 2014 might be 2012, might be 2016. I would be taking that away unless you are a CEO of a large business or it's really, really relevant to what you're applying for. But if it's more than 10 years old, it's probably not relevant anyway. I hope that helps. Anything where it can take off sort of the age, and you almost are making it a non-conversation. I contracts are almost always open to new work. I think that is so true for people that are in the contracting space. I don't know if I would then have it if I was a contractor. I would be using other ways to let recruiters know that I was open to new opportunities. Would you keep all of the details on LinkedIn? No. You don't have to have all of the information on LinkedIn either. I don't think many people are going to keep scrolling. It's just like a CV, and it should reflect that as well. I wouldn't have anything more than actually, maybe I do have more than 10 years on my LinkedIn, but if you feel that it is going to inhibit you, I would probably take it off. I see people that have just got, if they started a business, I was contemplating it, just put in from 2022 onwards, but yeah, I would be just putting the last 10 or so years on my LinkedIn. I had the opposite challenge with youthful looks that didn't convey my wealth of experience. It does happen the other way too, right? So people thinking that you are too young for a position, that you are, and I'm not sure if that's tongue in cheek, but you can really be seen as too young or not experienced enough, 100%. And I know that sometimes we're all guilty of an unconscious bias. When I talk to people and I think, you know, geez, they, you know, that they just don't seem to, it's just not fitting into the right mold of what somebody is expecting. And actually, I spoke about this on LinkedIn. It was probably about 12 months ago when a lot of people were saying that they are facing age discrimination, and it was people my age and above. But then they would also say in the next sentence, well, people are from Gen Z or from for that millennial generation, and they would be critical of younger generations. And so you can't ask for non-bias with age if you are also being biased towards other generations. So it definitely happens both ways. Again, I would be quantifying absolutely everything. It all comes down to the results. Like, you know, this whole thing of you need to have a certain number of years experience. You see that in ads all the time, and I don't believe in that. I just had a role and someone wanted 25 years of management experience. I thought that was crazy. I'm finding my roles often being replaced by someone younger and less experienced. It does happen. I think that is somewhat of an issue around the economic climate that we're in. I don't necessarily think that people are cheaper if they've got less experience either, because, you know, there are some incredible salary expectations around there. But yes, it is difficult. It's just a matter of, again, trying to make yourself the value of it. There was a post on, I keep talking about LinkedIn, you can tell how often I'm on there, but there was a post around the average tenure of people. It was by a fellow recruiter, Phil Little, and he had put on there that the average tenure from Gen Z and millennials was 2.4 years or something like that. And therefore, why are people reluctant to hire someone in their 50s and they think that they're going to leave? Odds are that that's going to happen no matter what generation or what age or whatever someone is that's applying for your role. So yeah, I don't get it, why there's the reluctance to hire people of any age, that people have got that age bias on. I wonder, as recruiters, would you call out discrimination because skills and life experience add so much value? I'm not sure what you mean by that. Would I call out discrimination? I would call it out if I saw it happening. So yeah, I'm not sure what you mean by that question. If a hiring manager was being discriminatory, I would hope that I was in a position to say something, or generally people come to me because of that reason, that I consult with companies, that I say, you know, you say you want someone with 10 years of experience with paid social. Why? You know, what if someone's got 2 years experience and does that equally as well? Or, you know, you only want someone with 4 years of experience, that someone's too experienced for a role. I would be like, well, that's a bonus for you, right? You're going to get something amazing out of that person. Trying to negotiate a role at the moment and having difficulties in getting company to budge on salary, even a few $1,000s. I would be asking myself what was the risk, and then being able to quantify that. So if they don't come to the party for you, if they're a few $1,000s short and they're not moving, I'd want to find out why that was, if there was something happening internally, but also then to ask them how they're benchmarking that information. How long ago did they have that salary number in mind? Is it based on other people that are at a business? And then again, showing what the value of having you is. It's a little bit like, you know, if you're renting an apartment and it's empty, you know, they put an increase in, and that apartment that is empty for 2 months, they would have been better off giving you the cheaper rent that you were asking for. So I would think about what it means that if they don't give you that extra salary and you go, what does that do? That's okay, no problems. I know people have got hungry children. I've got a hungry fur baby. My two children don't live at home anymore, which is quite nice. So if you are wanting to know how we can work together, I do have one-on-one coaching packages. It's all over on Career Architect. Please bear with me for the website. I built it myself. It is still in its early stages. If you see something that's not working on there, please let me know, because I do need to fix it. I'm aware of that. But we can do some one-on-one coaching with each other. It can either take an hour. There's 3-hour packages. There's 10-hour packages. And I do also have a job search masterclass, which is still ready to launch. So when people are ready, you can just jump on that. You can send me a message to say that you'd like more information on the job search masterclass. It's not a free masterclass. It is paid. It's 3 weeks. There's 6 topics, which I've listed below. It's all self-paced learning. So you get 2 videos a week. You can watch them however many times that you like. And I also jump on once a week for a live session. So if you're wanting some more information around that, please feel free to reach out to me, careerarchitect.com.au. All of this will be available, of course. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining me. I've really enjoyed chatting with you. Hope you found some good information. If you've got any questions, just let me know. There's one other question that's come in. Cynical in the first few K means more to me than it does to them. I'll answer your question separately. You know who you are. The last person that asked that question, I'll come back to you. Thanks, everyone. Have a lovely evening, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.